usually greet you from my window as Molly with my yoo-hoo, remember? This is my new home, of which I'm equally proud. And I'm going to introduce you to your host very soon, and he's going to escort you through our wonderful new studios. I haven't seen them myself because I've been so very busy, but I'm going to go along with you, and you're going to meet many, many of the Dumont celebrities.
Brought to you by New York Telephone, a NYNEX company.
Welcome to a birthday party. This year, WNEW-TV celebrates its 40th anniversary of commercial broadcasting. 40 years of exciting, momentous, life-changing events for the country, and for television, too. This is one of the pioneers of television, Dr. Alan B. Dumont. He developed the cathode ray tube, the television tube, which could be made inexpensively and would last more than 1,000 hours, thus making mass-produced television sets possible. The first ones he sold in 1939 were a bit crude, with only 4 channels, and hard to tune. But by the time of this one, the millionth off the assembly line, a gift to Dr. Dumont from his employees with silver Tiffany panels showing his important patents. They were well-engineered machines with the largest size picture of any set sold. Built-in record player, AM and FM radio, and a handsome cabinet. As the Dumont slogan said, the first with the finest.
They need plenty of lights just as they do for a movie camera. Only with television, Lanny's image and voice are not put on film. They're miraculously transformed into electrical impulses and sent through the air. Supervising from the control room, Alan B. Dumont himself.
In 1940, 2 years after Dumont had marketed his first set and had sold maybe 1,000 of them nationwide, Paramount Pictures made a one-reeler to run between feature films, predicting their vision of the future of television. It featured Ted Husing, Lanny Ross, and a gentleman who was to become the distributor of Dumont sets for Southern California.
Radio, they have to interrupt the program to let the sponsor talk about his product. But with television, the performer can go right on with his act like this. Oh, thanks for the memory of rainy afternoons, swingy Harlem tunes, motor trips and burning lips and burning toast and prunes. How lovely it was. Thanks for the memory. Simple, isn't it?
What could a viewer watch? In 1944, CBS wasn't broadcasting because of the war. There were only 2 television stations on the air in New York. WNBT, later changed to NBC, and WABD, the call letters standing for Alan B. Dumont, which were later changed to WNEW-TV. Sam Cuff, a lecturer and newsman, helped the 4,500 New Yorkers who had sets to follow the course of World War II. 1944 was a turning point in the war in the West, with the Allies landing in Normandy, moving across France and into Germany. The Pacific, Douglas MacArthur made good on his promise to return to the Philippines. And in that campaign, the Japanese, for the first time, made a kamikaze attack on our ships. But replacements were coming as the USS Missouri slid down the ways of the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I remember where I was. I was a merchant seaman on an old tub bringing ammunition to Italy. But even on those ships, we were reading that racy novel, Forever Amber. And on Broadway, the popular shows were Annie Get Your Gun with Ethel Merman and Harvey with Jimmy Stewart. Downtown at the old Wanamaker's department store, WABD built what was described as the largest television studio in the East, where shoppers could stroll by and look through the glass walls at the show business that was to come, television, and programs like Country Star, starring Peggy Ann Ellis.
Our show was kind of a Western and country style combination with square dancing. And of course it was live, as all those shows in those days. And black and white, and the lights were bright and hot. This is color because I had a friend shoot it on 16mm film. We were all brash and terribly young in those days. I think our show was probably the first musical on television. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think one of the first that had a storyline every week. And of course we had our little stock company of players, the sheriff, Gordon Dilworth, and Patty Adair, the dancer, and marvelous family feeling. We also had a very unusual happening when we were down at Wanamaker's. There was a severe storm one night, and we had a power failure. And in Alvy West's orchestra were a couple of wonderful musicians, Dick Hyman on piano, Bob Rosengarten on drums. So what did we do while everything was blown? We had a jam session, and it was great. Of course, that wasn't what we did on the show. It was country and western. But after all, you know, in the 40s and 50s, that sound was the big bands.
A good time was had by all. The wedding guests enjoyed their call. Their friends and relatives.
If you can recognize my voice, not from a latter-day commercial, but from hearing me croon, "A good time was had by all," then you can come on to my house. I'm Rosemary Clooney, formerly the girl singer. That's what we were called back in pre-Women's Lib days with the Tony Pastor Band. And we were on Dumont a lot. The bands were tremendously popular, and were on Channel 5 for years, all the great ones. This is Carmen Cavallero, and there was Sammy Kaye, Woody Herman, Benny Goodman, and his singer Francis Langford, the Dorsey brothers, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Errol Garner, Dave Brubeck, Harry James, just about all the greats. And there were variety shows each week with more music. The Maury Amsterdam show was one. I sang at Maury's place, the Silver Swan Cafe.
Thank you, honey. Why do you think I am just a baby?
Joe Sullivan was on the Cavalcade of Stars.
Just a child. Why do you think I go around with men for? And who do you think I've got a little yen for? I was humming a tune, freaking
A good friend, Vivian Blaine.
out of that orange-colored view. Flash, bam, alakazam, I gotta look at you. Dream a while, scheme a while.
Connie Haynes was on Cavalcade of Bands.
Should have find happiness and the guess of the things that you always find. But when my own true
Edie Adams on the Kovacs show.
I has found.
Remember the singing groups? Before there were groupies. The Ames Brothers.
Singing and you singing and you, oh babe, hopping and you popping and you, oh babe.
The Modern Airs.
It got me higher than a car.
I'm in clover, I'm in bloom when I'm
and the DeMarco sisters. Of course, there were the boy singers, too. Look at him. He really was a boy then.
I think that the first time I appeared on the Amsterdam show was virtually my first television appearance.
The cotton is high.
Maury was very kind to me. We're still great friends whenever we see each other. It's a loving embrace and a delightful reunion. And at that time, he did an awful lot for me from a standpoint of sort of beat the drums for me as a singer and as a songwriter. And one of his favorite songs, apparently, was A Stranger in Town, which I had written in 1943. So when the time came to do the show, there was no question in his mind that he wanted me to sing Stranger in Town.
It hurts to be alone with no one of your own when you're a stranger in your own hometown.
And we'll be back in a moment with an act of our own. One of the most eclectic singers to be heard on Channel 5, and not to be confused with the boy singers, Mr. Robert Merrow, and at the piano, Mr. Joe Raposo, both of whom spent time with Channel 5. Bob, WABD started carrying the Yankees in 1947. When did you begin singing the national anthem for them?
Well, actually, not then. I was quite young. No, at 67 I started, so it's 17 years now.
That's wonderful.
Because I've always wanted to be a Yankee, you know.
I know.
For an ex-prize fighter.
I played in the...
Very few people know this man as a fighter.
Did you, were you on the Cavalcade of Stars?
Yes. I was on the Cavalcade of Stars for many years. I think I was on the first or second week of it. After Gleason's jokes and the jugglers, there were a couple. There was a little spot there for a singer occasionally, and then Ernie Kovacs.
Are any of those Kinneys left?
I don't know, but one quite epic appearance on Channel 5 has been found. In the early 50s, Bizet's Common was broadcast live from the old Met, probably the first live television broadcast from the Metropolitan Opera House to motion picture theaters around the country. I had the great pleasure of playing opposite Risa Stevens.
In the early days, even the detective shows had live music. Usually a piano or an organ to sound ominous, like this. And up until the 70s, nearly all the information and interview shows had live music. For a couple of years, I was the theme composer and resident piano player around Channel 5, but I can remember another musician who was resident 2 decades earlier, and the phenomenon of lip-syncing to records.
Hi, I'm Tony Mottola, and I could make my guitar sound pretty ominous, too. And I did for The Stranger. That was an early mystery drama. But you know, the most fun I had on Channel 5, even though you couldn't hear much of my guitar, was with the most elaborate of the lip sync programs, Melody Street. And I know about that one firsthand.
Hi, I'm Tony Mottola. Happy to welcome you this first day of 1954 to Melody Street, your street of dreams, music, and imagination. This week, everybody's reviewing the highlights of the past year. Magazines, newspapers, TV shows, and we thought you might like to take a stroll back along Melody Street and stop at some of the musical corners we visited in 1953. Now, I'm not going to do much talking tonight because we want to recap as many as we can. Do you remember this one? When we went off at a gallop pace on Columbia's Deadwood stage with Doris Day.
It was a joy to do that show because the people were so great. You could not tell that they were lip syncing, really. They were just marvelous.
A beautiful sky, a wonderful day. Whip, crack away, whip, crack away, whip, crack away.
In what was obviously a copy of the Ted Mack Amateur Hour, then only on radio, WABD aired Doorway to Fame, which more than 20,000 acts tried out for in the first year. Then the next year, Dumont got the real article, the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. It went on the air as the first nationally sponsored program on television, with the highest percentage of TV viewers, perhaps still in television history. Half of all the viewers watched the Amateur Hour, although seeing it now makes you wonder why it was so incredibly popular.
To me, like New England has some wonderful acrobats. I think the little youngsters who were on last week were from New England, too. Well, now we have a 41-year-old machine tool inspector from Worcester, Massachusetts. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Bill Walker and his musical saw.
It was in 1955 that the Dumont network ended, and Channel 5 became an independent station. 3 years later, the call letters were changed from WABD to WNEW-TV. One of the last musical shows on the Dumont network was the Les Paul and Mary Ford show. I think they were the first ones to use the technique of overdubbing their own voices. The more modern era of Channel 5 has seen some particularly fine music, both contemporary and classical. Through the 60s and 70s, there were a number of musical specials and guest shots by fine musicians.
No, no, they can't take that away from me. No, they can't take that away from me.
You hear me? I'm out of school now. Before you got time. But you ain't him. You're the biggest fool in town. Oh, get it together. Get it together. Get it together! Get it together!
You know, Rosie and Joe, I'll always remember Channel 5 for the grand comics and the grand opera.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. My own personal recollection is the driving sound of the big bands. It's the most exciting thing in the world.
And for me, I guess, this being New York, the big Broadway musicals, that was good stuff.
The 50s are always called the golden age of television. Have you ever thought why? Is it all some kind of hoax by the performers, directors, and producers who are now mature and would like to remember the formative days of television in a somewhat better light than they actually deserve? Well, maybe in part. There was some incredibly silly shows on the air then, and sophisticated production techniques were just beginning to evolve. But on the whole, I think it was a golden age. We were, all of us, learning and growing, and it was a terribly exciting time. Even the Cavalcade of Stars, basically a comedy show then hosted by Jerry Lester, had time for fine drama.
The girl to be played by Miss Kim Stanley, and the boy, ladies and gentlemen, by Mr. John Garfield.
Come on, Oliver. I'll walk you to your house. I'm in your hotel. Do you have the same room?
You're a fresh kid.
When you see him tonight, you'll Mr. Moody. Tell him for me that the next world's champ is feeding in his stable.
Did you really read all those Britannia books?
From A to Z.
And you're only 21?
And a half.
Something's wrong someplace.
I don't know.
It's very unusual for these early shows to still be around. Dumont invented a system called teletranscription to put live television on black and white film so programs could be sent to stations around the country. Remember, this was before there was a microwave or cable hookup among stations. But unfortunately, very few of these kidneys, which is what NBC called them, still survive from any of the networks. And none from Dumont, starring Richard Kiley.
No, that's right. Only the memories remain, Carol. In my mind, and hopefully with some of the viewers of the dozens of shows I did on Dumont Network, my earliest recollection is kind of an amusing one. I was doing a thing called The Story of Stanley Ketchel, the famous boxer. And it was about 10 minutes to airtime. We'd done the rehearsal and done the dress rehearsal. And I was sitting in the dressing room, and the guy I was playing with, who was playing my trainer, who was an older actor, let fall the fact that he was getting $25 for the show. And I said, what? I said, I'm only getting 15. And he said, well, gee, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it. So I threw down my makeup and I ran out and ran into the booth where I found the director, and I said, what the hell is this? I said, this guy's getting 25. He said, would you please go out? We're ready to go on air. I said, I'm leaving. And I started to get my stuff, and he ran after me into the studio. He said, this is blackmail. I said, call it what you want. I'm desperate. So in front of witnesses, he said, okay, I'll pay you $25.
One of the first of a long parade of fine actors on Channel 5 was the distinguished Charles Laughton.
Hello. Mott's, for over 100 years, makers of fine apple products, and Sunsweet prune juice, present This is Charles Laughton.
Like if I may to read you my favorite psalm. This is Psalm 139. O Lord, Thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my down-sitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways.
The majority of the dramatic material of the 50s on Dumont were melodramas and mysteries, most often detective mysteries.
Rogers died a couple of hours ago in the hospital. You just confessed to a nice, big, fat homicide.
Ralph Bellamy starred in Man Against Crime, aided and abetted by the likes of Jack Albertson.
The city is sending a limousine. Look what I won in a crap game. Well, this part I do not wish to...